really. So we will have our MAP testing next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. This morning we're just going to talk about what is MAP testing, why do we use MAP testing, how does it work. I've got a few sample questions. If we have any eager volunteers in the room who'd like to shout up answers, that's good. What can you do to help your child all term, but also just before the MAP tests, and also a timeline for parents of what happens after the MAP tests. So the first thing, what is MAP? So MAP, it's an acronym for Measure of Academic Progress. And next week, as I said, your child will sit 3 tests. On Monday, it will be a reading test. On Tuesday morning, a mathematics test. And on Wednesday morning is a kind of a grammar kind of a test, also an English test. These MAP tests are held twice a year, in September like we're doing now, and also in May. And that's the really good thing about MAP is when we do a number of MAP tests with your child, we get to track the data over 2 semesters, 4 semesters, or whatever. So it's an adaptive test, and that means that it adjusts to each student's learning level. So if your child is doing the mathematics test and they're finding it quite easy, the MAP program will make the questions harder and more challenging for them. Likewise, if your child is an English language learner, and if they're finding the English test a little bit difficult, the MAP program will make the questions a little bit easier for them. So it's really good that way, in that it adjusts the level to your student, to your child's level. Okay, so why do we use MAP testing? So MAP measures what students know and measures growth over time. The results provide us with more information to help them and to help personalize their learning. So a lot of you, through the homeroom teacher, will use IXL at home. We can put in the MAP results into IXL so that IXL is then presenting questions in mathematics or English literacy that is at your child's level or just above your child's level so that it can stretch them. How does MAP work? So next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, your child will come in, grade 3 and grade 4 do these on an iPad. They love that, as opposed to the old days of a pencil and a piece of paper. And grade 5 will do these on their computers. They just log in their username and their password. The teacher will be in the room. IT support will also be in the room. So if there's any problems, everything is okay. The MAP tests include multiple choice type questions. So they have to read a sentence and then maybe click on A, B, C, or D. There's drag and drop questions. So there might be a sentence with a gap in the middle and they have to drag something in. There's different types of questions. The teachers in the classrooms do practice sessions before the MAP tests next week. And I think also the homeroom teachers have emailed you that if you want to do practice at home, they've showed you how to get in, how to log in, and how to use the program. Those practice sessions are very good, particularly with mathematics, because the child will be able to practice how to use a protractor or the ruler on screen. And likewise with the literacy and the English tests, they get better at dragging and dropping the right answers and ticking on the right boxes and those kind of things. So I'm going to look at one mathematics question now and one literacy question. And if there are any eager beavers in the room, you can shout out the answer. So this is an example of a math question. I think it's from grade 3. And step 1 here, the child adds the 4 plus the 6 and they put down a 0. And in step 2, they add the 4 10s and the 4 10s and they put down an 8. So they have the wrong answer. They've made a mistake. And the question is, what mistake have they made? So A here, in step 1, Taj should have added 1 10 above the 4. Or B, in step 2, he should have added 100 in front of the 8. So what's wrong there, as you know, he's added 6 and 4 is 10, puts down a 0, but he doesn't have the 1, so it should be 90. The answer should be 90.
You can see that's a multi-step problem. It's not just answering a simple addition problem, but they're having to then use higher order thinking to work out which one is the mistake and then choose the right answer from there.
So in this question, you have to answer either A or B and then type in the...
Yes.
So it's 2, not 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's why we do the practice tests. You can't practice the content for these but we're helping them, and this is why the teachers have shared the practice site with you, just to learn how to take a test and use the tool, testing tool. They can't study for this at home.
The other interesting thing is some students, when we watch some students doing these tests, some students are absolutely tenacious. They are like investigators. They read every word on the screen. You see them pointing to different parts of the screen. Some students treat these as puzzles, and they just perform so well because they read the questions so many times. Okay, yes.
The student who their English is not that up to the standard level, they will struggle in math test, even though their math skill may be quite advanced, but they struggle with the English.
And so that's why different children can receive different accommodations. So for children who are receiving English language learning services or support, we've already communicated with those parents that their child will have an accommodation. So for an example of an accommodation might be, they will have text to speech. So they won't have to read it, but it will be read for them so they can hear it.
The other thing, I could have put much easier questions up here as math samples, but I wanted to put up a question that would show you how the children really have to think. It's not simply about number, they really have to think about all of the information on the screen. As well as that, just on that as well, as they're doing math during the week and during the term, even though they're English language learners, they are coming across this math vocabulary all the time and these types of questions. So we move on to the English or the reading question. And it is this one. So Bart is reading about an alpaca, and he wants to know what the alpaca's coat is called. There are 4 sentences here. And again, we would encourage the students to read these sentences a number of times. If a student rushes this, they might say, well, the alpaca's coat is soft, and they might type in the word soft. But as you go down and read through it more, the last sentence here, the alpaca's fleece makes warm blankets. So then they will go, well, that's a very specific word, the word fleece. Okay, so they're the types of questions. And again, I wanted to put up a question to show you that the most thing I would say to students and that you should say is read the questions really well. They are not in a hurry to do these tests. They have loads of time. They have plenty of time, so just to read every question thoroughly. The other thing I want to talk to you about is this thing we call a summer dip. Your child may have attained a strong MAP score in the MAP assessments taken in May. Then during the summer, they don't read as much maybe, they're not doing as much math. And when they come back in September, they do the math assessment again, and their MAP score has dropped, maybe 5-10%. This is quite normal that they would have a dip in their score. So if you do see it, don't worry about it. And as we go from September now through to next May, we do see growth.
I think another thing to think about is, because instinctively you look at what did my child get last time, you'll see that on the MAP report. If your child has achieved very well, and often we see this in maths particularly, and their percentage is really, really high, it's really, really hard for them to make big growth, okay? So that's, I know one of my children, we had to have that conversation is, you are doing so well, and this is showing us your great growth, but when you're up here, it's really hard to get a big step up again. And even if your child sees, if you're looking at it with your child, we'll talk about it in a moment, what we're celebrating is what they can do. We don't want children to ever walk away from these sorts of testing feeling, I'm bad at that. So we're saying, look at all the things you can do. These are your strengths, and these are the things that we will work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, so after the MAP tests, you will get a report, maybe a week after. The report will show you these diagrams. If your child has sat, we'll say, if this is the third MAP test, you'll see the first one, the second one, the third one, and you will see the progress there. You will also see the percentile score that they have. 50th percentile is if your child gets a 50th percentile, they are where they're supposed to be. That is the average for a child of that age. Some of you will see scores that are higher, some of you will see scores that are lower. Last year in this room, somebody asked me a really good question. They said to me, these here are the same colors as the zones of regulation. How are the two of them linked? There is no direct link, but it just shows, it's just a visual to show you that if we're down here, we need to support both in school and at home much more. And if they're up here. As Anita said, though, if your child is getting the 80th percentile, it is very hard to get up to 85. If they're on the 85, it's very hard to get up even more. And likewise, if your child is struggling, if they get literally 3 or 4 questions can make a huge difference. So again, that's why we encourage them to read all of the questions so well. Yes?
And the reports are generated automatically by the system or?
Yes.
Yeah. Once
Yes.
we close the testing window, and so we have testing in secondary as well. Once everyone's done their test, then we generate the reports as a staff. Then we do a data deep dive, and then we send them out to parents. We'll give you the timeline for that.
Yeah.
Points up. You see the top graph there? So this child, we have many different testing points. The longer the child is in the MAP assessment system, the better we can see that trend over time. So even though there's a little dip there, overall, the trend is going up. So that's what we're looking for, is that growth over time, as well as being able to look at what they can do on that specific assessment.
Yes.
So the population of this testing is or Thailand or all over the world?
All over the world.
Yes, it's compared to, and we can then internally look at we can change those data points to compare to other schools in what we call EACOS, which is East Asia region, Council of Schools. That's it.
In Asia, you can put in Asia or all over the world?
We can internally, but on the report, it's just every child who does MAP testing.
The other really interesting thing, if a student will say gets the 50th percentile in mathematics, we can actually look in and do a deep dive, as Miss Anita said. The child might have done really well on number and 2D shape and 3D shape, but the report will also show us that they need a lot more support in fractions and decimals. And that's the real benefit of doing the MAP test, that we use it to inform our teaching afterwards. Okay? What can I do to help my child? Well, just every day encourage your child to read. We say that if they read for at least 15 minutes every day. One of my favourite things is to stand at reception and see students coming in with a book in their hand, or to go out in the morning and they have 15 minutes and some of them read their books. The other really nice thing is if you see friends swapping books. I have the first one in the series, you have the second one, can we swap? And it really does show that there's a love of reading and a culture of reading. When your child is reading, ask them questions. You know, what happened in the first paragraph? Why did the character feel like that? What do you think will happen next? So for you to participate in the reading experience as well. And just that they have a quiet, comfortable place to read or to learn, that there isn't devices on in the background or televisions or things like that. And in terms of next week, just prepare a balanced breakfast. Ensure that they have a good night's sleep. And as we said at the start, this should not be, we do not want to create anxiety around this, you know, that you have to do well in your test and that. We just encourage them to do their best and to take their time and to read the questions carefully. We like them to be in the green zone when they come in on the days of the test. It takes about an hour every morning. We do it first thing in the morning so that the child is alert and, you know, refreshed from the night before. So just please do make sure that your child is on time every morning, but particularly every morning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Because if your child's late, they're going to be feeling anxious going into the test, and it's also going to be disruptive for the other children who are settling down as well.
So just a timeline here. We'll do the MAP test next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You'll get the MAP report on the 3rd of October. You get your primary progress report on the 10th of October, and there are parent-teacher conferences on the 29th of October. There's no classes on that day. So it's a really good idea to, after you get the MAP report, have a look through it and have questions ready for the teacher to talk to them about at the at the parent conferences. But as we said, the MAP score is very narrow, so you're also looking at their primary progress report of the 10th of October. And then how do you talk to them about their results? When they finish the MAP test next week, they will not see a result on the screen. It just says finish test and they finish. One way you can do this, though, is to talk to them when you have both the MAP report and the progress report, and just highlight the things their teachers say they're doing well, and also the areas for growth. Every single child in the school, every teacher in the school, every admin in the school has areas for growth that we need to improve on as well. So any other questions?
So the rule for testing is
The classroom.
the classroom.
Yeah. So some children have, you know how I was talking about accommodations before, some children may have an accommodation where they're in a different space, and we have additional teachers that will take those children, but otherwise it's in the classroom with the class teacher and the educational assistant.
How long? 1 hour or what?
About an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. Some children will finish a little bit earlier and they will just take out their book and read. It is a really quiet environment. In my previous school, there were maybe 24 children in the class. So that was a lot of noise and a lot of distractions. Whereas here we have much smaller classes, so they have more space. And as I said, when somebody finishes early, they just take out a book and read.
The teachers and EAs are actually in the room while children are testing. One thing we're watching for is rapid guessing, okay? So I think that's a really good thing to talk to your children about, is go slow, read it. Not just bang, 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 thinking, I'll get it done and I can read my book. Because it will, one, the teachers will see it and they will talk to the children. Or two, if they go really fast, it creates an alert in the system, so it will actually freeze their test and then the teacher will reset it for them.
Okay.
Any other questions this morning?
And the relation between the outcome of result with the September, November, what I call the IB.
So very, no, not connected.
No.
Not connected at all. No. No, the MAP test data is just one piece of data in many pieces of data that we have to help support the students. The reason we don't show the kids the number is because it doesn't mean anything to them, right? And it really is for us as adults to interpret that data and make sure we use it to inform the next steps. But the only thing we would share with the IB is that we use this standardized assessment as part of our suite of assessments that we use to support student learning.
Any connection between grade 5 or come to the grade 6 in the secondary school?
For MAP?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
math.
yep, they use the same assessment all the way through grade 10.
So when you said that what you're looking for is growth over time, so how much time do you get until you start some sort of intervention?
Usually we need at least 3 assessments to see a trend in the data. But what we're also looking for is a match between what we see in the MAP test and what we see in our in-school assessments, in our observations every day. So if we see, for example, that this child is really succeeding in reading, and I see that here as well, great. That's what we're trying to live in that data. If we see something somewhere that looks very different, that's when we try to find out more about what's happening.
And I think that depends too on the units that they've been studying, say, so far this year. So if your child is just in grade 3
Right.
now, and we can see from their results of their fractions, that's still something that they need to work on. We know that they haven't learnt that content yet. Because it could be, because it's an adaptive test, it can give them the content that's higher than their grade level, especially if they're doing well. So we look at not just the score, but the breakdown of that.
So if your child comes home and says, but there was a question about angles, and I don't understand what angles are yet. That's okay. The test is adapting to try to find that point of challenge for them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they should have learned about angles from past weeks differently in the test. That's not the point.
And so does it mean that after 3 tests, for example, if a
our unit planning, every time we're doing it, we have a unit protocol where all of our teachers meet with all, the homeroom teachers meet with all the specialist teachers. So that would be a conversation that the homeroom teacher would be having with James as part of that every 6-week check-in. So we're not waiting until we can see something like that. Every child, this is why we have that a deep dive into the data of what's going on with this little person with this. Does it match what we're seeing in class? Because if it's going down, we're already noticing that in class, what's happening with this person.
And then does this child get additional support right away, or what do you do?
So that's where our planning, the teachers aren't just planning one maths lesson or one lesson that fits everyone. What we do is the teachers differentiate what the children are doing in class. So that in any class you go upstairs now, you will see some children will be doing something that's more difficult than other children, for example. And that's where we use our EAs and our support team of Ethan and James especially and Andrea, that will go in and then work with small groups. If it's something that's significantly different, then that's where there would be maybe a pull-out or a separate program developed for that child, and there will be constant communication with parents as part of that.
And it's not just for English, so you have that for math.
Yeah, James works with maths for a number of children.
And almost always, what we see is like if there is a dip in the math score, the teacher would have already been fully aware of what's happening with that child, and it might confirm it and help add to that conversation because there's another piece of data to them. And would it be the first time that we?
And do you tell parents at some point?
Yeah, yes. Any child that's having any form of intervention, we communicate it out with parents.
And for those students weak in English, you can use translation allow use some dictionary or something else.
Your child is receiving ELL services. We've already received communication about them having text to speech. So there's only certain tools that we can use as part of a standardised test, which is different to what we can use during the school day. So if anyone's got questions about it for their particular children, we're happy to meet with you now and chat. Just one last check if there's any other general questions people have.
So I noticed like last year there was a meeting with the homeroom teacher. They have like a very extensive explanation more than what we get.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get copies of those, or?
There's no need for parents to have that at this way because it's one data point, and I want to be really clear on that. That goes into a lot of the teaching and programming side. So the parent one gives you that big overview of it. But we really want parents to understand this is one part of the assessment. And I know over the years I've seen some parents get really hooked on this point, but it depends too, you've got to think of where does that piece of learning fit into the grades of schooling and developmentally what they should be able to do. So it's a lot of information there that I would say isn't necessarily relevant for parents. Teachers can share that with you as part of looking at particular goals your child can have in a meeting, but we don't publish those.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks.